They say behind every successful man is a woman who believed in him before anyone else did. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. For years, Maya was that woman. She was there when Daniel couldn't even afford the Uber fare to his pitch meetings. She sat in their tiny apartment, researching venture capital trends while he worked on his endless prototypes. She skipped dinners out, sold her jewelry, and poured her inheritance into his dream without hesitation. Because she believed in him. They met in college. Daniel was charming, ambitious, and full of ideas. Maya was grounded, bright, and generous. He loved to dream big. She had the practical mind to help him shape those dreams into something real. Together they were a team. Or so she thought. The first few years of their marriage were lean. They lived off of Maya's salary as a junior graphic designer, while Daniel cycled through one startup idea after another. A smart home fitness app, a VR-based language tutor, even a subscription box for eco-friendly dog toys. All of them failed. But Maya never complained. She believed that failure was part of the journey. Every time something collapsed, she told him, "We're just getting closer to the idea that works." And Daniel would look at her, wide-eyed, grateful. "I don't deserve you," he'd whisper. She didn't know how right he was. It was Maya's grandmother who left her a sizable inheritance. A small fortune, really. Maya hadn't touched it for years. She wanted to save it for something that truly mattered. So when Daniel came to her with his latest idea, an AI-powered project management tool for small businesses, he seemed more determined than ever. "This is the one," he told her, eyes gleaming. "All the others were trial runs. I've learned so much. Maya, this is it." And just like that, she wired him the money. $250,000. No paperwork. No questions. No contracts. Just trust. She watched him light up. He started working around the clock, pulled together a small dev team, and rented a cheap office space downtown. Within months, he had a working prototype, a slick pitch deck, and a growing list of interested investors. Maya was ecstatic. She told everyone her husband was about to change the industry. She stayed up late helping him format his investor proposals, even designed his first logo. She did it all in the background, quietly, loyally. But something started changing. The more successful Daniel became, the more distant he grew. He stopped talking to her about work. He started dressing sharper, spending more time at the office. His phone was always on silent. When she asked how things were going, he gave vague, clipped answers. Then came the parties. At first, they were just launch celebrations. Small affairs with the team and a few friends. Maya would help organize the food, make sure the venue was perfect. But soon, they turned into networking mixers with strangers she didn't recognize. She stopped getting invites altogether. And Daniel stopped coming home on time. He always had excuses. Meetings ran late, investors wanted dinner. "You wouldn't be interested, babe, it's just boring tech talk." Maya felt it like a slow unraveling. The warmth between them cooled. The spark in his eyes when he saw her vanished. She started recognizing a new expression, one that bordered on contempt. Still, she hoped. She thought it was stress, pressure. Success changed people. Surely he just needed time to adjust, to realize what really mattered. But the day she found the lipstick-stained coffee cup in his Tesla was the day her illusions finally cracked. It wasn't hers. And she never wore red. Maya didn't confront him right away. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. Instead, she started watching. She began checking his social media tags, the photos other people posted, not just his curated feed. She recognized the same woman popping up beside him, a brunette in expensive heels and a clingy dress, always laughing at something he said. Her name was Celine. She worked in marketing. At least, that's what her LinkedIn said. But Maya saw enough to know what was really going on. Even so, she said nothing. She waited. Because Maya had learned something else while helping Daniel build his business. She had learned how the corporate world worked. How shares were structured. How boards were formed. How investor agreements were written. And most importantly, how to cover her tracks. A few weeks later, Daniel walked in late again. His cologne hit her before the front door even clicked shut. Maya sat at the kitchen table, a book in her lap, tea gone cold beside her. Daniel didn't even meet her eyes. "We need to talk," he said, voice flat. She closed her book, placing it down gently. "I'm leaving," he said. "This marriage, it's not working anymore. I've moved on." There was no apology, no remorse, just clinical detachment, like he was firing an employee. Maya didn't flinch. "All right," she said softly. Daniel blinked. "I didn't expect you to take it like that." She stood and walked to the sink, poured out her tea. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Tears maybe. Begging." He actually smirked, like he thought he'd won something. That was the moment. The exact moment everything inside her stilled. She turned to him, her face unreadable. "You really think I'd beg you to stay?" she asked. Daniel faltered. "Look, Maya, I'll make sure you're taken care of. I've already talked to my lawyer. You'll get a settlement. We can do this quietly." She smiled. 2 words. Just to check your shares. First, Daniel laughed. Actually laughed. "I don't know what game you're playing, Maya," he said, shaking his head. "You think you're going to scare me with legal talk? You weren't even involved in the business. You were just the supportive wife." Maya didn't blink. "You're right. I wasn't involved." She picked up her teacup again, casually rinsing it in the sink. "At least not in the way you think." Daniel stared at her for a long moment, then pulled out his phone. "Maya, seriously. I don't know what you're talking about." "I know." She turned off the faucet, dried her hands, and walked past him with a calm he couldn't understand. And that was the part that truly unsettled him. She wasn't crying, wasn't shouting, wasn't begging him to stay. She was calm, controlled, prepared. That's what finally made him nervous. Daniel barely slept that night. He kept checking the company dashboard, refreshing the shareholder portal. Everything looked normal. His name was still listed as CEO. His shares were intact. But something itched at the back of his mind. What did she mean? The next morning, he rushed to the office early. Celine was already there, sipping an iced latte like she owned the place. She leaned back in his chair, spinning lazily. "What's the rush, boss?" she asked with a wink. "I need to see the cap table. Now." She raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. She pulled up the shareholder breakdown and turned the monitor toward him. And that's when his heart dropped. There, clear as day, was Maya's name, Maya A. Caldwell, listed as a primary shareholder. Not just a token percentage either. She held 42% of the company. Daniel blinked hard. That couldn't be right. She had never signed anything. He had always made sure to keep the business separate. He never gave her equity. Except he had, without realizing it. 2 years ago, in the rush of trying to secure seed funding, Daniel had needed money fast. Banks had turned him down. Investors were hesitant. Maya offered her inheritance, and he'd taken it eagerly, writing her name in on a convertible note agreement a friend had helped him draft. At the time, it seemed symbolic. Placeholder. She hadn't asked for legal representation. He hadn't even filed it. But she had. Maya had quietly filed and notarized the agreement. Then she'd converted it to equity when the company incorporated. On time, legally, cleanly. With help. Daniel had no idea she'd been working with a corporate attorney on the side. No idea she'd built a paper trail to protect her investment. No idea she'd been advised to keep quiet, play the supportive role and wait. And wait she did. Through the cheating. Through the lies. Through the rising success and the mounting arrogance. She waited while he built an empire with her money, believing it was all his. "What the hell is this?" Daniel muttered, scrolling furiously through the cap table. "Is there a problem?" Celine asked, twirling a pen. He ignored her. His hands trembled as he opened the articles of incorporation. Maya's signature was there, right beneath his. She wasn't just a shareholder. She was listed as a co-founder. And that meant something very specific. Meant she had board rights. Meant she had voting power. It meant she could do far more damage than he'd ever imagined. He grabbed his phone, dialing his lawyer. "Brent, I need to talk now. It's urgent." Maya, meanwhile, was packing. Methodically. She didn't take everything, just the things that mattered. A few framed photos, her laptop, the hand-thrown mug from her ceramics class. She didn't touch the art on the walls. She didn't care about the designer furniture. None of it mattered anymore. She'd spent the last year building something else. Something stronger than a home. Something that couldn't be taken away with a signature on divorce papers. She had spent that year learning. Daniel never noticed the way she asked questions about board governance. He thought she was just playing corporate Barbie when she read those books on venture capital. He never saw the meetings she had with his first investor, how she convinced him to support a new board structure if it came to a vote. She had been underestimated from the beginning. Now that would be his downfall. At the office, Daniel tried to regain control. "She can't do this," he told his lawyer, pacing. "She's my wife. We had an understanding. She supported me. That doesn't mean she gets to take the company." "Daniel," Brent said carefully, "she owns 42%. With the right coalition, she could force a board vote. And given that she brought in initial capital, she has a strong case." "Then stop her." Brent hesitated. "Legally, you gave her everything she needed. You just didn't read the documents." Daniel slammed his hand against the desk. Celine flinched. "I want her out," he shouted. "You may not have a say." The next 48 hours moved like a hurricane. Maya called for an emergency board meeting. It shocked Daniel how quickly the investors responded. He'd assumed they'd side with him, but some of them had grown disillusioned with his leadership. He'd missed deadlines, overspent on vanity marketing, burned through capital like it was monopoly money. And Maya, she had receipts. She presented a clear roadmap of where the company had faltered and how it could recover. She had done her homework. Even the most skeptical board members had to admit, she wasn't just a silent partner anymore. She was a force. The vote came down to the wire. 5 members. 3 in favor of removing Daniel as CEO. 2 opposed. The motion passed. Daniel sat in stunned silence as the board chair announced it. His name would remain on the founder plaque, but from that moment on, Maya would hold the seat of interim CEO while the board searched for permanent leadership. He couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. All he could do was look at her across the room. Maya, composed, confident, wearing the calm expression of a woman who had planned every move like a grandmaster. And she looked back at him with something that wasn't anger or vengeance. It was clarity. He had destroyed their marriage. She had built her legacy. After the meeting, he stormed into her temporary office. "This isn't over," he hissed. She looked up from her laptop, cool as ever. "I think it is. You blindsided me. You lied." "I didn't lie. I protected my investment. You just assumed I wouldn't. You're not a leader, Maya. You don't know what you're doing." She stood slowly, walked toward him, and leaned in close. "No," she said softly. "You didn't know who you were married to." And then she smiled. A different smile than before. This time it wasn't calm. It was victory. In the days following his removal, Daniel spiraled. He showed up to the office twice trying to talk to the team, but security, now briefed on the board vote, refused to let him in. The second time, he shouted through the glass doors like a madman while Celine ducked behind a cubicle, suddenly not available for comment. His calendar cleared out. The investors stopped replying to his emails. Even his old mentor, someone who had vouched for him early on, sent a curt message. "You were warned." But Maya, she didn't gloat. She didn't go to the press. She didn't humiliate him on social media. He simply worked. As interim CEO, Maya got to work restoring what Daniel had neglected. She slashed the overblown marketing budget, cut ties with vendors they didn't need, and rebuilt trust with the team. Her years in the background had given her something Daniel never had: insight. She knew who had been working late for passion, and who was just milking the payroll. She promoted the quiet, competent minds. She restructured the product timeline. She asked real questions. And when the lead investor suggested making her permanent CEO, she turned it down. "I didn't do this to wear a crown," she told them. "I did it to protect something I helped build. Now it's time for someone new to take it forward." They asked her to stay on the board. She agreed, on one condition. Daniel's remaining voting shares would be frozen unless he stepped down from the board entirely. The motion passed unanimously. Maya's lawyer sent Daniel the final paperwork. He sat in the corner of his new apartment, half empty, the blinds drawn, a takeout box growing cold beside him. He didn't even read the terms. He just stared at her name in bold on the letterhead. He used to call her his biggest fan. Now she was the woman who'd taken everything he thought he owned. And somehow it still didn't feel like enough. But this story doesn't end with him. It ends with what he never saw coming. 3 months later, Maya attended a private industry panel in San Francisco. She wore a dark pantsuit, sleek and elegant. No one whispered that she was just someone's wife anymore. She was Maya Caldwell, early investor, board member, and the woman who turned a crumbling startup into a streamlined machine. After the panel, a younger woman approached her. "Ms. Caldwell," she asked, "can I just say, your story really inspired me. I was in a similar situation. I thought I had to stay quiet." Maya smiled. "You don't. You never did." The woman grinned. "I just wish we had more people like you running things." Maya paused. "We will." That night, Maya returned to her own space. No longer a home filled with Daniel's shadow. This one was hers through and through. A small modern condo, filled with soft light and clean lines. Her office overlooked the skyline, a reminder of how far she'd come. She opened her laptop and clicked on a folder labeled New Venture. Inside were notes, branding sketches, pitch decks. She was launching something of her own, this time under her name. No one would be able to write her out of the story again. Meanwhile, Daniel received an alert on his phone. A new tech startup had just secured series of funding, $9 million from a major VC firm. The founder, Maya Caldwell. Her company was called Novapulse, a competitor to his original product. Only sleeker, faster, smarter. And guess who her lead advisor was? His first investor. The one Daniel had ignored and burned. Daniel stared at the screen. The press release said it all. When women stop waiting for a seat at the table and start building their own, everything changes. He tried calling her once. Just once. It went to voicemail. "Hey, Mia. I saw the news. Congratulations, I guess. Doing well. Listen, maybe we could talk. Just talk. You know, I've been thinking a lot about things and maybe I didn't." Beep. The line cut him off. He never tried again, because she never called back. Months passed. Then a year. Daniel faded from tech headlines. His remaining shares dwindled in value as his involvement grew toxic. Celine, after a quiet breakup, moved to LA and started dating a wellness influencer. Maya's company, meanwhile, became a rising star. She was invited to keynote conferences, featured in Forbes' Women to Watch. And every time someone asked her how she did it, how she survived betrayal and came out stronger, she gave the same answer. "I stopped waiting for someone to give me power. I took it back." And if they asked about Daniel, she just smiled. "He thought I'd begged to stay. Instead, I smiled and said 2 words that ended him." Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story and tell us where you're watching from.